The Group Chairman, United Bank for Africa, PLC, Mr. Tony Elumelu, has underscored the urgent need for bold and innovative strategies and reforms to propel Nigeria's transformative nation building. Mr. Elumelu took time to highlight the collective responsibility of all citizens to a united, prosperous, and inclusive Nigeria. He was speaking while presenting the keynote address at the 63rd Nigerian Bar Association Annual General Conference in Abuja on Sunday. The conference was with theme Getting It Right, charting the course for Nigeria's nation building. It was declared open by President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Take a listen to some of the key issues raised in that speech by Mr. Tony Elumelu.
Is it not ironic that a country with abundant gas resources cannot optimally operate its power plants due to lack of gas? But I've seen the beginnings of what we can do. There's hope in what the efforts and steps that have been taken by Mr. President. Let me share with you an example. The Trans-Afan power plant that belongs to Transcorp Group has an installed capacity of 1,000 megawatts. The federal government of Nigeria made significant investment prior to privatization to acquire 240 megawatts fast power turbine from General Electric. For context, 240 megawatts of electricity can power about 1 million homes out of darkness. Yet, General Electric has threatened to pull out of the project because our nation, with some of the largest gas reserves globally, could not provide 65 million scores of gas needed for the comprehensive testing of the installed fast power. We have idle gas fields, and there's so much private capital to make the needed investment for gas production. Yet we cannot produce gas to power our economy and the 21st century industrialization that we need. Thanks to a short-sighted regulatory regime and self-serving policies that keep our people permanently in the dark. This has to change.
Mr. Elumelu also spoke around youth empowerment and, of course, technological development as it has to do with youth. Take a listen to that, too, at that event.
Underestimate the power of hope, gentlemen and ladies. Hope is what fuels the dreams of our youth. Hope is what ignites the determination of our entrepreneurs. Hope is what unites us all in our pursuit of a better future. Nations that prioritize their young go far. It is no coincidence that an America that created Harvard and Stanford also produced Amazon, Google, Microsoft. We need the same focus on our young. We need the same focus on their futures and ambitions.
We now have Mr. Paul Alaje, who is joining us to discuss this. Now, Mr. Paul, Mr. Elumelu appreciated government of President Tinubu for bold economic reforms, which according to him is painful but are necessary to retool the economic landscape of the country. What will be your reaction to this first?
Well, my immediate reaction is that Mr. Elumelu is one of the major investors in Nigeria, and he's somebody who has risked his personal fund in the country. And if there is anything, all of us, those of us that are economists who are also privileged to have invested some amounts in the country, will be for the country to be a country that is desirable for people to live in. So I understand this point. When he spoke at the NBA conference, that yes, the president has taken some bold steps, but we need to quickly take some other action so that the gains of the initial decision will not later become pains.
Indeed. Whilst acknowledging the challenges faced domestically, the chairman of Harris Holdings stressed the urgency to address issues like energy deficits. What do you think about all of this, disillusionment? He talked about all of this, saying that we need to address issues around climate change and all. What would be your reaction also to this submission?
Well, among other things, he spoke about energy. He even mentioned that Nigeria is a country blessed with abundant gas, but we don't even have gas to power our end. So it shows the fact that Nigeria needs to move from being beneath to above and beyond. Nigeria needs to understand that our capacity, our ability to become, our tendency to become a great nation will depend on our ability to convert from just being a mere nation where people are around the world, we just see us as another Black nation or as another African nation, to one that can provide solution. And I think Mr. Elumelu, in his speech, clearly mentioned that what we need to look at as a nation is investment in our youth. Investment, this investment will not just come from government, it must also come from the private sector. As a matter of fact, he summarized his view that all hand must be on deck to make Nigeria a great nation. And this, we must see demonstration from the leaders as well as the followership. Those were the things he put together. And I can tell you that some of the things he said are very apt. They are important because when you look at the youth today, you know, just before the Bureau of Statistics released the report, which seems to be a bit controversial now, as to using 1 hour per day, 1 hour per week as a measurement for unemployment complying with ILO standard. What you see before that time, as at the last quarter 2020 report, you notice that the youth unemployment is really very huge. And it says that when you look at example of what Nigeria had capacity to do, from the United States to the World Trade Organization, to Afrexim Bank, to African Development Bank, you see Nigeria that grew either in Lagos, in Owerri, that grew in Ibadan, in different places. All of these, Nigeria, even those, if you go look at what do I call it, UN, you see a Nigerian that grew from the north. All of these people are example of our capacity. What we must therefore do is to provide the pillars for development, not just pillars for growth. We must go beyond growth to finding pillars for development. Energy, of course, will take lead in that conversation. Empowerment of young people, especially as it has to do with tech, as it has to do with science, as it has to do with technology. Also, removing corruption, corrupt tendencies all around us, especially in our government, must also be something we must be very serious about in the coming period.
The gas issue, let's stay a bit around it. And he gave an example of what's happening with Trans-Afram Power Plant. It seems like issues around policy around that space needs to be rejigged. I don't know. What do you think around that? Talking about policies to improve, of course, our gas infrastructure and attract more investment into that space.
Well, I'm happy that Mr. President has separated Ministry of Petroleum to that of gas. I'm happy that separation has happened, and I'm also happy that the agenda for the new Minister of Power is that power must be available. That problem has been solved around the world long time ago. All the decisions that has to do with policy, policy papers, implementation of all of the policies must be done in no time. The truth is, if we don't remove odds around policies and putting capable hands to help us manage not just the policy but implementation, we will see complaint over and over. And the truth is, the energy company will lose. Nigerians are also not getting sufficient power supply. It has implication on our employment. It has implication on inflation. It even has implication on exchange rates. So the big elephant in the room is, how do we make gas that we have in abundance under our foot to convert it into what we can use? So whatever we need to do, from policies to funding, I think they are really very important that we make this a reality.
Investing in our country and also this issue of rebranding, all that has to do with us is something that everyone is also mentioning. And I see that also in that speech. Let's invest in brand Nigeria. How more can we invest in brand Nigeria, Mr. Alaje?
We cannot overinvest in brand Nigeria. Go to Kigali. Before you get to Kigali, you will think everything ends in Kigali. We must, as a matter of fact, whether people call it just trying to pad the situation, investing in this country, nobody will invest in us. If we go around the world telling people that Nigeria are fantastically corrupt, do you know the implication of that statement? Anywhere you take your green passport to, you will be called aside for extra search. Because if the leader of a country is saying that you are fantastically corrupt, we must change the way we communicate Nigeria. And it's important. We must also, we cannot change Nigeria overnight, but we must create specimen states. For instance, you may want to pick Kano, Lagos, Enugu. You may also want to add somewhere like Calabar to it and say that this will be our example. You may want to start from the FCT, but by all means, we need to create specimen states that we will project to the world. Listen to this. The truth is, we have our concerns, and you could see many of them are enumerated in that speech. But you see, the way you present Nigeria, the way you present the country really matters. America will tell you when you view anything about America, you hear songs about America. But has that stopped shooting on American streets? I am not supporting violence. I am not supporting any horrible, terrible act against humanity. I am completely against such. But you see, for us not to suffer as a nation, we must attract investments to our country. And investors will not come, whether Nigerian investment or non-Nigerian, bringing investment into the country, if all they hear about us is banditry, is terrorism, is killing, is fight, and all manner of things. It will not make us to be a better nation or put us in a light mood. So we must get it right with the police, with the judiciary. We must get it right. And you see, when we do all of this and we put pillars of development in place, that is when we will start attracting useful and needful investment.
Private sector participation remains very important. I know, Mr. Paul, you wouldn't argue that. You would agree with me. And we've seen what the likes of Tony Elumelu has done with regards to youth entrepreneurship, his foundation, and all of that. What do you think, or do you think more Nigerians should take a cue from this, to do more of this, to encourage the youth, particularly in the area of technology, where people can create solutions to solve problems? How would you react to this, Mr. Alaje?
Well, I cannot agree with him less. He's not a man of words, he's a man of work. I have seen him, I mentioned it in words, and I've also seen him practice it. My advice to government is that out of the 100,000 that government is looking to support in terms of SME financing, as mentioned by Mr. President, 31st of July, 2023, my advice to government is at least 10%. Out of 100,000, 10,000 of those should be young people within the youth age bracket, and they should be those who want to invest in tech. When I say tech, exportable tech, technology that can fetch Nigeria hard currency. What does that mean? When you put this together, tech requires most of the time more than one person. Such businesses, we attract other businesses, other individuals who perhaps are not fully engaged or unemployed. They will engage them, and you're going to see the way young Nigerians can revolutionize the country. But my point will be, 1 million naira will just not be enough. Government, we need to do more in terms of the funding for these young people. So from what government has agreed that government should, even though I've argued that I think government should do more, especially for small and medium-scale businesses, I would say that government should create that startup fund where we can see where government can even call for private sector, other established and well-to-do private sector to support young Nigerians that are willing to invest in this regard. When we don't do that, young Nigeria will continue to vent, because people with capacity that are still in the country. The challenge is, if we don't make use of these people and put some level of investment in them, the challenge will be they will find a greener pasture. That may not be completely bad, but it is dangerous. The reason is because as people are leaving, they are not repatriating funds. They are not sending in remittances home. So instead of us having some level of brain circulation, what we are having is brain drain. They learned here with relatively weaker naira. They go abroad, they make the dollar, but the money remains in that economy. So it cannot be better said than government must show demonstration that we are supporting young people. Private individual must also show demonstration that we are also supporting young people, especially around tech. And I have said we need to create a tech fund of some sort that government will have 40% of the investment, while private sector we have 60% of the investment. President Tinubu has that window now with the support he wants to give to young people. And he marks certain amount of money, proposing about 2 to 5 million naira for about 10,000 young people who are in tech space, whose products we can export to the rest of the world. It could be an app, it could be anything to provide solution within the tech industry. And what you see is that young people, we mop up a lot of people with knowledge, also provide training, mop them up from unemployment, underemployment bracket, and bring them to the cover where our country can truly be said to be great, because you will be respected as a nation. You would have been a proper brand when the countries you are visiting knows that the person behind the app of their immigration is a Nigeria. Definitely, they will not talk less of our country.
Mr. Paul Alaje, I must thank you for your time. Apologies for the challenge trying to connect earlier, but we had a good show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much for having me.